Welcome to Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity because here you'll find curiosities. I'm Wyatt Buckner of the Duluth News Tribune, and I'll be your guide as we discover the unique and fascinating stories here in the Northland. Here we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. In this episode, we look at the gnomes that have mysteriously appeared in Gilbert yards this summer. Let's venture forth into Northlandia. Here to walk us through this Gilbert mystery, I'm joined once again by reporter Teri Cadeau. Teri, welcome back. Now for Gnome on the Range, as I think one of our coworkers put in our Slack channel recently.
Yeah, I'm going to give credit to Jimmy for that one. Thank you for bringing it up. But yeah, also, and this is the one that I put up there, and I was like, it's not great, but I love it. Also, this is an episode of Gnomelandia. Very happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Welcome to
So,
Gnomelandia. Now
yes.
over Zoom this time around. We couldn't meet in person this time, so this is our first virtual appearance, which makes sense because now we're
Yeah.
in Gnomelandia. Maybe it's a different
And that's
sub-region of the Northland.
and that's the only reason I might sound funny. No other reason. Absolutely none. Nope, definitely. Anyway,
I mean, I sound funny all the time, and I can't blame the virtual for that.
well, or illness, but doing good. Doing good. Here today.
Mm-hmm. And now, as I don't want to say usual, but you tend to bring stories from the Iron Range and the Gilbert region, have we established in the past, because you're from Gilbert and you have affinity to stories in the area. But even I have to ask, what the heck is going on here with this story with this gnome mystery? Like what's and
Yeah.
this happened this summer. This is recent, right?
This is very, very recent. So this is something that I literally have been keeping an eye on Facebook for the past couple of months. Literally, I joined a few months back a Facebook group called Concerned Citizens of Gilbert, which it's what you would expect from like a Gilbert, a city-based neighborhood news kind of a thing of like, here's all the things that we're seeing, here's the things that are going on in the town. There's a dog that's loose on my street. Oh no, whose cat is that? Is that a cat or a monster? I don't know, things like that you kind of
Sure.
tend to see.
It's like most
Um,
communities have something that affinity. I know just up here in Proctor, like there's a
yeah,
community group like that. I don't think it's called Concerned Citizens, but it's basically
sure.
functions as, hey, there's some sirens going on over here. What's
Yeah,
up?
yep, exactly that sort of a thing. And that's kind of what I expected. But then one day in like late May, early June, I started seeing these posts on there being like, hey, there's a gnome in my yard. I just found this gnome. It has a little tag on it that says you've been gnomed. What is this?
You've
And
been gnomed.
nobody was like coming forward to take responsibility for like or being like, oh hey, that was me. This is a fundraiser. Because normally those sort of things, you kind of see these sorts of things happen in towns with being part of a fundraiser. Like you'd see a bunch of pink flamingos placed in your yard and you can pay to have them moved to somebody else's yard. Or even I think we've heard of people doing this with like little like ceramic gnomes. But this is a fabric gnome that was just placed in somebody's yard that said, you've been gnomed. And so I was like, okay, so somebody's doing this, but I wasn't sure, like, is this a group? Is this an individual? Like, what is, and then from like then it was beginning of June, months pass, and I'm still watching this happen. And I'm like, I really want to do something on this, but it feels like part of the fun of it is the not knowing. The element of not knowing who's responsible. So I kind of didn't want to be the one to be
You
like,
didn't
oh,
want
let
to
me just
you didn't want to be the one
unveil.
to crack the mystery
Right.
yourself. You'd
Well,
rather
it
wait
just
to see the
feels
mystery get cracked on its own.
well, and that is exactly what happened. So, I remember it was like a Friday afternoon where somebody had posted like, "Hey, thanks so much to Kim Dertinger for the gnome. We really appreciate it." And so then a couple of hours later, Kim was like, "All right, so I guess the word is out. Yes, it was me. I'm the one who's been going around Gilbert putting all the gnomes out there." So, yeah, it was kind of a fun thing to keep an eye on over the summer. Is people got these gnomes that were seemingly like individualized to them, not necessarily. She didn't set out specifically with that goal, but yeah.
So just to be clear here, just so we can establish it well here, what
Yeah.
exactly does it mean to get gnomed, to be
So,
gnomed? It's just a gnome that's just found in their yard?
yep, it's fabric gnome. So usually about 2 feet high because most of them are made out of tomato cages. So upside down, turned over tomato cages. You know the cages that you put around your tomato plants so they'll grow upright and they won't have something to kind of lean on. So
Mm-hmm.
instead, she takes those and turns them upside down, covers them in fabric, and makes a design of a gnome, like the little nose peeking out, no eyes, kind of like how those you see a lot of gnomes like that where they've got the big hat sticking up and it's supposed to be covering up like their eyes and they got their nose sticking out. So you get those gnomes and people found one of those. So it's not like a bunch of them. It's literally just one usually, or maybe two or three if they were attached in their front yards.
Gotcha. And I know this appeared in the Concerned Citizens of Gilbert group, but generally, how did people react to this? Like, was
Oh,
it more
incredibly pleased.
positive, more negative, more I don't know what to think?
At first, I was very confused. Like a lot of people being like, "Wait, what is this? What's going on?" Okay, and then eventually people were like, "Okay, I guess this is just a thing." Okay, well, thank you though. We like it. This is good. A lot of people were very happy to see it. One of the people who I talked to, Amanda, she talked a lot about how she's pretty new to Gilbert and she feels kind of like an outsider still. And so when she'd been seeing these gnomes posted on the Facebook group, and then when she got her own, it made her feel like, "Oh, I'm included in this community. I'm part of this community. Somebody noticed me enough to send me a gnome. That's pretty cool." And so she was really happy to receive that. Yeah, as well as another woman, Kim Dobbs. She was thrilled to get one that was apparently it looked a lot like a Cookie Monster gnome.
Okay.
And it was fun because her daughter is very young, and so it was perfect for her house and her this kind of theme of things because she's got a lot of children's toys in the yard, so it kind of goes right along with that.
And I know you already mentioned their name before, but who
Yeah.
was behind the gnomes? Who, and then I guess why?
So this was all the doing of Kim Dertinger, and so she basically she likes creating art and crafting. So she started out painting the gnomes. She did a couple of different gnome paintings, but she found that doing the painting was kind of hard on her. Like she has fibromyalgia, and so it's kind of hard for her to keep doing that. So she decided to find a different way of creating gnomes. She still had the idea of gnomes in her head, so she got some fabric out and she started making them in different ways. And before she knew it, she had like 50 of them in her front porch because she just kept making them because she was having fun. She was making different themes, different ideas, different, making them different sizes and shapes. And so she had like 50 of them. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to take these to a craft fair. And she took them to a craft fair and she sold one. So
Mm.
she was kind of like, ooh, okay, do people just not like these? Am I asking too much for them? Like, what? I feel like they're a thing that people should like them, but she just wasn't getting a lot of reaction to them. So then she decided, well, I have enough of these. I'm just going to start putting them in people's yards.
That's one way to respond to disappointing sales.
Yeah, just be like, all right, well, now you're going to get gnome bombed. Everyone gets a gnome. Not everyone, but yeah, she started with some people that she knew and she would go to their, like she found the house of a food truck person, a person who runs a food truck in Gilbert, went to their house and left them one and they thought it was great. They're the first post in Concerned Citizens of Gilbert being like, what is this? And then eventually she told him it was her and he was like, oh, okay, well, I won't tell anyone because I want, it to stay a secret. That's kind of true with a lot of people. A lot of people like would find out it was her or catch her in the act or something. Like Kim Dobbs caught her in the act and was like, but I didn't say anything because like it's fun. It's fun to not know. It's fun for
Okay,
it to
so
be
it
kind of
wasn't
a
like
mystery.
an
Some people knew,
crazy
some people
intense,
didn't.
it wasn't a
Yeah.
crazy intense mystery. Like there were
No,
people
nobody was.
who knew but just didn't say
Yeah,
anything just to
there were
keep the
some.
fun going.
Yeah.
And
There were no gnome hunts. There was nobody like, oh, we got to find whoever's doing this. And no, it was very much like curious, but not like, yeah,
I feel like all these negative words just are instantly like undone by the gnome. Like we got gnome bombing, gnome hunt. I just like the
yeah,
gnome just adds a fun fantasy feel to it.
yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of how it went. And she did talk a lot about she would drive around and she would kind of try and she'd have a bunch of gnomes in her back seat and she'd try and match like the gnome to the house. Like look at their decor, look at what they have in their yards, look at, the kind of general feel of the house and try and match whatever was going on there. Like for example, the woman I talked to, Amanda, she talked about how last year she put out a whole lot of Halloween decorations and everything. So when she got her gnome, it was like decorated with spiders and it was black and red and those are her favorite colors, which Kim didn't know, but she'd matched it perfectly without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
yeah.
I'm curious, is the gnome bombing still going on right now?
Yeah, so she is still creating the gnomes and she's still putting them out there. She does need more tomato cages, so she's put that out there of like, hey, if you want a gnome, bring me a tomato cage and you'll get a gnome. That's how and then if people want specifically themed gnomes, like she made one Viking gnome for a friend of hers that she knew loved Vikings, so she sacrificed one of her own Vikings t-shirts to create the gnome. And she's like, but if anyone else wants things like that, I am gonna need like some money just for materials because it does, doing the specifically themed ones, that would take more time and money and
So
whatever. So
is she selling these now, or is it still just giving
yes,
them for
but it's not
free?
like she hasn't set up like an official site or anything. It's very much like, come find me, talk to me, we can get something going. So I thought it was a very nice move of just she wanted do something nice for her community. And so this is the way that she could do it. She had the supply and she was like, all right, what am I going to do with these? She probably needed more than anything. Let's be real. She probably needed her front porch back because it was filled with like 50 gnomes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of space. So I feel that as somebody who crafts myself and who sometimes gets on a theme of making one item over and over and over again. Yeah, eventually you're like, okay, now I need to just get rid of these. So I totally understand that intention. And I gotta say, of all of our Northlandia folks, she kind of reminds me of the person that we talked about. Was that just the last one that I did? I think it was. Our Evelith friend, who's the folk artist who sent his paintings and carvings to a bunch of people. So it's kind of like that, but on a local scale, a micro scale, doing it in her own community, doing to people, that she kind of knows.
As Jay likes to talk about on this podcast about committing to the bit. And I feel like that definitely fits the idea of like, I have all these gnomes, I'm gonna start like surprising people with them.
Yeah.
And as you said, like she had the supply, and in a way, she's kind of created a demand that people didn't know they wanted or needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're wondering, hey Teri, your parents still live in Gilbert. Have they received a gnome? Yeah, as of last week, they got a gnome. So my mother was very pleased. She was just like, oh, hey, guess what? We're also part of the gnome community now. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay.
That'd be funny if that's how you found out about the story in the first place. Like, how did you find out about Teri? My family was a victim of the gnome arrival.
Not a victim. Everyone is very happy.
No victim.
But it's very funny because she got one that had a lot of like animal print on it and a little teddy bear. And it's perfect because my mother has dogs and she's a big animal person, and her dogs have a favorite toy, which is a teddy bear. So again, not even necessarily knowing that. She didn't know these details, but again, somehow picked the right gnome for the right place.
Sometimes like an artist intuition. Somehow they know. So I think we've already touched on this, but how do you feel like this fits into Northlandia? Obviously, we already talked about the idea of it committing to the bit. Obviously, like she had these gnomes and she's putting one out there and it's turned the whole thing. Now she's making more gnomes. So there's definitely that aspect of it. But beyond that, how do you think it fits in here?
I think so. Another thing that I think that is really essential to be part of Northlandia is that it's someone who takes a creative endeavor and makes it bigger than themselves. Like even in a smaller setting, like for example, we had that person who kept putting the smiley face up on the rock in
Amity Creek.
Yeah, Amity Creek. So I mean, even that it is bigger than themselves. Like they could do that sort of a thing in their own yard or in their own space, but to take it and make it more into a public setting, to take that out from their home and putting it out there, I think that's a big part of what makes a lot of our stories become stories in Northlandia. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I feel like it brightens people's day to a certain extent, it sounds like. At least the one person you talked to, it sounds like it brightened her
every
day.
person who I talked to, every post that I've seen about it, nobody's been like, what is this? I don't like this. I don't like gnomes. No. If anyone has been upset by it, I've not seen any actual reaction to it in a negative way.
Well, that's good to hear. Are you hoping to ever receive a gnome?
Well, my parents did. That's
I guess that's
as close as I live in Duluth, so that's as close as we're going to get, and I'm very okay with it. I'm glad my mother was happy about it. It's good.
Is there any chance that the gnomes will spread to beyond Gilbert?
I don't know. Apparently, she has brought them to a couple of nursing homes outside of Gilbert, and the residents then will like have it for a while, and they'll decide who it's going to go to next, and so they'll keep passing it on from room to room, which is pretty cute. And then also she's done some in Virginia, a couple around in other places, just because she knows people or wanted to, touch some people. And yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Teri, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for making it work virtually since we couldn't meet in person this week.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
And hopefully next time we can meet up in person again. But if this all worked out, we now know virtual is an option if we need to.
Absolutely.
And thank you for joining us in this venture into Northlandia. To read the article for this week's column, as well as see photos of some of the gnomes, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/topics/Northlandia. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to support us, consider becoming a subscriber of the Duluth News Tribune at DuluthNewsTribune.com/subscribe. Join us again next time and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss. You're on the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.